Yo, what's going down everybody? Brother Stevanius here. Welcome back to Command Centre Wargaming. So in this episode, we're going to have a look at the new Space Wolves. Now, we've got a few people, they have the rules and the books for the Saga of the Beast, the upcoming Psychic Awakening book, which has Space Wolves in it. And it's basically up for pre-order now from Games Workshop. It's actually Australian $70, which is cool, and we have the price for the Prophecy of the Wolf, which is $290 Australian, which is pretty close to what I guesstimated last time, but it wasn't quite over 300 either. So yeah, look, what this video is going to be about, we're just going to have a little bit of chat really about some ideas I've sort of had in regards to Space Wolves. Also have a look at what we kind of know so far from some of the feedback, some of the early releases that have come out from Games Workshop and stuff like that, to other media sources. So, you know, from what I know, no one's really put anything up on the book in its entirety yet. But we do have a lot of reviews out there. We have, you know, a lot of sort of websites and things like that and articles from reputable sources, which, you know, we can sort of start to draw a conclusion that they're pretty much real. Now, we already know that the Ragnar Blackmane rules are real because they're on the website right now. Okay, pretty much, you know, stat for stat. So it's fair to say that, you know, that everything else is pretty much true from this point on as well, because there are a lot of people who do have access to the book. I don't have access to the book, but it doesn't stop me from being able to talk about it. So fantastic. All right. So first of all, let me say I'm actually pretty excited because in the last video, I spoke about how, you know, I had a Space Wolf army, and I do, it needs painting, but I have it. It's a couple of thousand points actually. I've got a fair few of them because I wanted to get back into them on the Codex drop the other year, last year. But I was saying that, look, I might not get into them too much, you know, this time. But going through some of the rules and having a look at some of the stuff, you know, that Games Workshop have put out now in terms of the rules and how they play, I'm really, really optimistic. Now, look, I don't think that this army is going to be super competitive in terms of like the tournament scene, but I think that from the rules that we have so far, I think that it brings them up there with a fighting chance. Okay, I don't think, just to put it out there right now, and we'll go through some of the rules and some of the things later that we know from the books. And there are plenty of YouTube videos out there where you can have a look, you know, word for word, what every single thing is in there. But this is more of a conversation just about, you know, the sort of implications of these rules and where they fit and possible future tactics and states of play and lists. I've had a few ideas myself I wanted to share with you guys and girls and people. So if you wanted to share them with me too, just, you know, let me know. You can chuck a comment down below. If you've got a list which you think is awesome, or if you think I'm wrong or think I'm right, please feel free to drop it in the comments. So the thing is with them is that they did get a really, really big buff. And it does bring them up to sort of like the sort of standard Marine meta, all right? But I don't think it quite makes them uber. And the reason is, and you'll see in a second why, is because most of their heavy hitting stuff actually happens in the assault phase, on the assault doctrine. Yes, they have doctrines now in there. Basically in the assault phase, right? In the assault doctrine. But that usually comes in around turn 3 now. Okay, so on one hand, they're really, really powerful. They're going to get exploding 6s now and things like that. You know, and that can also be enhanced with stratagems. But at the same time, it's kind of like most of this is going to come in on the 3rd round. So, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword where, you know, they're going to be wrecking balls. Like you can get like Thunderhammer Terminators with like 4 damage, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, re-rolling the 1. All right. But at the same time, it's like, you know, they're not going to get any extra attacks to turn 3. And then you've got to get them there and things like that. And the issue I have with this is that, so you're either going to need to have things, you know, off in reserves, bring them on in turn 3 or turn 2, or you're going to have them on the board and you won't be able to get them to their combat effectiveness, straight away, right? In turn 1 or 2, like some of the other armies, like, Iron Hands, for example, or say even Ultramarines or Imperial Fists, turn 1, you're in there using their enhancements from the first turn, right? Whereby with Space Wolves, it's like, yes, they are competitively kind of thereabouts in the first 2 turns, because they do now get Angels of Death and everything like that. But the problem is that, like, by the time you get to use their epic stuff, you risk most of the stuff being blown off the table. Okay, now, because the thing is with Space Wolves is it's always been, the problem has always been the delivery. The delivery, as discussed in the last video, and any Space Wolf players, please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are here. Because I have a Space Wolf army, I've played them a few times, but I'm no way like a regular Space Wolf player, veteran Space Wolf player, okay? So really would like to hear your thoughts on this, like Running Bear, and please drop me a comment, let me know, let us know, okay? So, but yeah, the thing is that, like, they've got a lot of epic characters, they always have, but it's always just been about getting them there. Now, there are a few ways, you could put them up in transports, you could bring them up the board like we discussed in the last video. I mentioned the Impulsor, was talking about because, with Ragnar, being Primaris, I was talking about chucking him in there with a couple of lieutenants or something. But in the new Psychic Awakening, you've also got Ruin Priests and all that, which have updated rules for who are in Primaris armor, so they can actually go in there now, like with them. So you can get more characters in there. The other thing I thought of as well is Reavers. So if you've got the room, Reavers are standard infantry, that they can deep strike in though. So it's kind of like, why would you? But if you were looking for something to like jump in the Impulsor with Ragnar, because you can't put Terminators in there, which would be my go-to unit. It's actually part of my strategy with this army, the list I want to build, which I'll explain to you later. But you kind of really want to be taking advantage of these guys close combat, right? In my opinion, you don't want to have Ragnar getting out with a bunch of Primaris Marines, okay, with Stalker Bolt rifles. That stuff ain't going to make sense, okay? Even if you give one of them a Thunderhammer or a Chainsaw, it's just, no. The strength of this army is brutal in melee. You need to complement them in melee. Now, the thing is that I had an idea, okay? So we kind of know now, okay, they're not on Iron Hands level, but they're awesome, close combat fighters, right? Unsurpassed. Maybe Blood Angels, in terms of Marines, might be able to give them a go. But aside from that, they're brutal. And, a lot of people saying that, like, they synergize really well with Dark Angels. So you have Dark Angels, Plasma, which is actually a really good idea too. I thought about maybe having Dark Angels with, like, Plasma as the backline for the range, and then having, like, Primaris Hellblasters, and then having, they're just in like a fortification, or they're in a fire base up the back. You might protect them maybe with some close combat units here and there. Maybe you have some, blood claws or something, around them, protecting them or something, just so people can't charge them that easy. But they can sit up the back in a fire base, and then, your Space Wolves can go on the assault. So that way you've got your uber melee and you've got your uber range. But I thought of something even a bit better than that, I reckon. Now, I'm probably not the only one to think about it, but I'm the first one that I know of to think about it. At least I haven't read anything about this. Anyway, what I'm going to do with my Space Wolf army, I'm going to mix them with Iron Hands, right? Because that way, Iron Hands have a very, very good buffs with heavy weapons and stuff like that, okay? They're very, very good ranged army. They're also very stoic in their own right. So I would still rate Iron Hands as a really, really top competitive army, even with the nerfs, okay? The most recent one. Now, the other option is Imperial Fists, like, because with their, ignores cover and exploding sixes on the long range fire. You could do that. Ultramarines will work. Pretty much any range army will work. Dark Angels as well. But I'm thinking Iron Hands, because Iron Hands, you get all the buster heavy weapons. So you basically have Iron Hands, sitting up the back in a fire base. Maybe you got an Executioner there, and you got like heavy weapons teams, like with heavy bolters and and all that kind of stuff. Maybe like, you know, a few land speeders of assault cannons and that on there as well. You know, flying around, and the Leviathan Dreadnought, okay, which is awesome. You think about it, you know, you could basically go up there and use the Space Wolf Dreadnought, and then you can go through and, you know, he will do the melee, and basically you get, you know, the Leviathan Dreadnought with double siege cannons just sitting back in the fire base, slowly walking up, you know, and just popping off those siege cannons. And it will work as a really good distraction carnifex as well. So that's something that I was thinking. I haven't put the whole list together yet, but, you know, it's kind of the direction I was thinking of heading on my list. Now, I wanted to sort of go a little bit Terminator heavy with these guys, because let me tell you now, like, first of all, look, there are stratagems in this book for like land speeders and that. You know, I'll do another video when I actually get the book, and we'll have a look, and I'll go through everything specifically. But right now, it's just basically an overview, okay? It's just basically general discussion that we're having. But the thing is, I don't know, I have an issue with that because, you know, I am a competitive player, but I'm not a cheese dick player. Like, I'm not just going to field spam stuff because it's good in an army. I need it to be thematic as well. So I guess you could call me semi-competitive. You know, but it's up to you. But there is a stratagem now with the land speeders, which gives them quite a big buff. But, you know, I would kind of steer clear away from that. And I would go with melee. I would be basically playing on their strengths, which is melee. Even aggressors as well, you know, get that going, because they're gonna be coming in with bolter discipline, stuff like that. You know, yeah, I wouldn't be really fielding too many sort of Primaris intercessors with Space Wolves, in my opinion. I know they're still really good. I know they're still, but I would go for Blood Claws, okay, or something a little bit more melee, you know, orientated. Wolfguard, I think, are the ranged equivalent of Blood Claws. I would go for them, or even drop in some scouts or something. You know, the other thing is bikes as well. So bikes have got a new buff as well with these guys. I would consider it taking them as melee bikes. To be honest, I don't think I would go range bikes with them, although there is a buff, there is a stratagem there. Like I said, I'll go for this in another video. But I would actually leave that, you know, to maybe the Iron Hand side of things. Yeah, but my list is basically, it's going to be Terminator centric, right? So Space Wolves, we basically now have the ability for the Space Wolves, you know, to be for Thunder Hammers and Power Fists and stuff like that, to be able to hit on twos, re-rolling ones, and like wound on twos, and like, you know, and doing 4 damage. So D3 plus 4 damage, okay? You mix that in with Ragnar, you know what I mean, with his attacks as well, the brutal attacks in there. This is some mean close combat stuff. I think it works out to be roughly with the Terminators. If you get like 5 Terminators of Thunder Hammers and stuff like that, you buff them up with the new rules, okay, and everything, and you're in the assault phase. You basically get exploding 6s, and, you know, you get an average of rolls. You could pretty much just smash out a night, you know, with like 5 people, okay, 5 Terminators. So it's really, really powerful, and that's the way I want to play it. The idea the path I'm sort of heading, the direction I'm sort of heading for these guys is that, yes, I have my Iron Hands Firebase. I don't know what that would be. I'll put the list later up on the channel when I work it all out. Whatever's the most broken, okay? And then basically I'll have some, you know, some troops, obviously, with Space Wolves as well. You know, but mainly it will just be Terminators. So like Iron Hands stay on the board, and then Terminators come in turn 3 on Deep Strike with RJ Rockfist. So he is brutal as well. He is a freaking tank as well. And I would be running him with the Terminators, Deep Striking in turn 3, because that's where they're going to be most efficient, and they can't be blown off the board like before then, because they're going to come in Deep Strike. And meanwhile, maybe you have some aggressors, maybe you have some, you know, maybe some of the Thunderwolf cavalry going up the board, which I think would be really powerful too. Yeah, so that's sort of where I would head with it, backed up by Iron Hands. So Space Wolves are kind of, everybody knows they're like a melee army, right? The main thing about them, which brings them up in strength is basically Wolfen, okay, and the buffs that they give. Now, I don't really like the Wolfen. Yes, I understand they're powerful. I understand that they're near broken, in terms of strength. They're really, really good, but I just don't like the concept. I don't like the models. And it's a shame because, they are very good. But it's just a personal thing with me. I went on the GW today and I looked at, because I considered it because I know how powerful they are. And, but I was like, I just don't like them. They just don't look right. Like, they just look a bit silly to me. But that's basically the center of the army. So the issue is as well that before we've had Smash Captains of Space Wolves, right? And, and other hero units, but it's always just been about getting them there, getting them up to the front line, which has been the issue. And this is what has hampered Space Wolves a little bit, okay? And before I forget too, just to let you know, in case you don't already know, even though we've got doctrines in here now, would you believe it? It's actually out of date. So this book must have been printed before they did the FAQ, right? Because it's still got the rules from the old FAQ, all right, in this book, which sucks. Which really pisses me off because, I spoke about it in another video talking about last year how, they messed up the sagas in the Space Wolf Codex. And yes, I know it's just a page, but it's the point of it. You pay $70 for a book. You want it to be correct. Like, this is just getting a bit rude now. But yeah, so the additional FAQ isn't in the book. So you're going to have to basically go through and then download that, or just source that out somewhere else. Now, in terms of competitive play and stuff like that, I mean, technically these guys, if you go by the rules until it is FAQ'd, these guys are running without the combat doctrine discipline nerfs, right? So they can literally just, stay in assault, stay in heavy support all day, whatever. But with that said, there's kind of no reason why you would, because with their special abilities and stuff like that, which we'll get into in a bit, they want to be in assault phase, right? You want it to be turn 3. But just so you know, just so I don't forget, that's something else within this. I can't call it a codex. I suppose it's a supplement that is of note, and it's quite disappointing, I feel. So going back to it, yeah. So characters. So Smash Captains. See, with Blood Angels and things like that, they never really suffered from this problem, and the reason why is because a lot of their characters, as we know, they have a lot of mobility. They have stratagems, enabling you to set up on the board like 9 inches away. You have other stratagems which can let you re-roll charges. You have other stratagems which you could place another unit, 9 inches in and then basically get them up there anyway. So effectively, if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much nearly have 2 or even maybe 3 Smash Captains in Alpha first turn, just hitting on things straight away. So Blood Angels have always had that ability to get the units in, into combat. Whereas, Space Wolves, I think they're meant to be more powerful in close combat because they got that hit buff. But really, I feel as Blood Angels are still more powerful close up. Because of the reroll to wound buff they get. Oh, not reroll to, the +1 to wound, sorry, +1 to hit for Space Wolves, +1, I apologise. So, but you know what I'm saying. Space Wolves are, they get their +1 to hit, which is great. Look, for fantastic, because it means you're hitting on Thunder with Power Fists and that on 3s, characters are hitting on 2s, okay, or they were, now it's like 2s, characters are hitting on 2s, and also, if you buff them up correctly, the normal termies are hitting on 2s as well. Oh my god, that's good. But Blood Angels have always had that mobility, okay? And this is one of the biggest problems. And I feel as though, that kind of hasn't really been addressed in this book that much. And what I think they're kind of doing with Space Wolves, I feel as though Space Wolves are more of a an advanced army to play, because their risk and reward is really high and it's really low. So, on one hand, you've got these uber characters. You've got like Primaris characters there with 7 freaking attacks, which turns into 10 attacks. Then you got RJ Rockfist. Then you got like all these other characters. Then you got Ulfric, whose rules are in this book as well. But apparently, he hasn't been written in to use litanies yet. So the keyword isn't there for him to use litanies. So until it gets FAQ'd, he can't actually use any litanies, even though he's, technically he should be able to. But then so you've got all these uber characters, you've got all these or strong units, but then the weakness is that they've got to get in. Now the problem is, I feel as though now you can put everybody in transports, you can put everybody in those, flyer transports. Sorry, the names eluded me now. The Wolf Barge or whatever it was called. But basically, the problem is that 8th edition, they're shooting everywhere, stuff gets blown off the table, and the problem is as well is even if you can get them up their first turn in one of those transports, the Space Wolf transports, you're paying it at a points tax. Those transports aren't the cheapest. And you can only get sort of like 1 unit up in there. Maybe if you want 2 units up in there, you get 2 transports, you fly it in. Now, they do have weapons, but still, by the time you sort of pay the tax on that, you're going to be severely outnumbered. So I feel as though that's the go of the Space Wolves. And I think that the way to sort of get them going is to go through and to ally them in with someone else. So yeah. They have combat doctrines, discussed that. They have the Angels of Death special rule now, I've discussed that. Just got my little notes here. Doctrines are old. Okay, so yeah, you want to be in the assault, yeah. So yeah, we'll see most powerful mid-game due to their strengths wanting to be in turn 3. Now, the doctrine that they do have is called, the chapter doctrine is called Savage Fury, okay? Savage Fury, essentially what that does, I believe it's actually here. We have a rule for it here. Here it is, Savage Fury. Whilst the assault doctrine is active, if an unmodified hit roll of a 6 is made for an attack made with a melee weapon by a unit with this ability, that attack scores 1 additional hit on the target. So that's basically the sort of exploding 6s. Now here's the epic part of it though. It is pretty powerful because it's an auto hit. It's not another attack. It's another hit. So it means that like if you have a character who's rolled, say you go with Arjak, right? Say you go with Ragnar, okay? And you've got 7 hits, which becomes 10 hits because of his abilities. And then you basically go through and you roll, 3 6s. Like I've done that a fair bit. It happens a lot. You're going to get an extra 3 hits, just downright hits. And then you got Thunderhammers coming in there, wounding most things on 2, or he doesn't have a Thunderhammer, but he's still very strong. Chances are your Terminators are around him will, and you're just going to dish out the pain. Like, that's insane. But once again, okay, they have to be in the Assault Doctrine. So on one hand, it's uber powerful, but on the other hand, it's situational. All right, so my tactic would be to basically put a whole bunch of other stuff on the board, play them, other Space Wolf weapons, whatever it is, shield this guy up while he's traveling up the table in the Impulsar or whatever it is you want to do to get in there up till turn 3, protect him, and then unleash. And then, like I said, bring in some Terminators, some Space Wolf Terminators, coming down from Deep Strike, and just absolutely pulverizing stuff. Those guys will melt stuff with these buffs, because you imagine the attacks coming out of those guys and the hits there. Okay, so, and when you combine that with the extra attack of Shock Assault, it's another +1 to hit, okay, in the first round of combat, thanks to their Hunter's Unleashed special ability. So that's that one too. So the other thing that's important to note as well is that their chapter trait, so the Space Wolves chapter trait, affects all units now, okay? Not just infantry, bikers, and dreadnoughts, okay? Which means that it's like everything, Okay, so that's pretty huge too. And we discussed Ulfric not being updated. So let's have a look at some of the other rules that we know about so far. We've gone through Ragnar already. We've spoken about that. So here we go. Berserker Rage. Now this is a I think it's an ability. So with a potential of 10 attacks. Oh no, that's Ragnar's. Sorry, that's Ragnar's rule. So let's go back down here. So here's some stratagems, okay? So we got a few stratagems here, if you're still with me. So knowledge of the foe. So this is 0 command points. Now, interestingly enough, 0 command points. This is the first stratagem that I've seen anyway at 0 command points, which is really interesting. You know, it's something new for him anyway. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when an enemy character is destroyed by an attack made by a Space Wolves model in your army. You receive 1 command point. That is pretty epic. And what it does, it kind of synergizes with the Space Wolves being the hunters, the Space Wolves being, you know, the Emperor's sort of police, if the watchdogs, if you want. Like, you know, they're like the bounty hunters. You know, they're the Marines that come in, you know, that are brutal enough to like even hunt down other Marines. Like if you think about back in the Horus Heresy, you know, Space Wolves was sent, you know, after Thousand Suns. They even were sent after the World Eaters. From memory, I think they lost to World Eaters, but they certainly wiped the floor with Thousand Suns. Just ask Magnus about that one. So all good. So the next one is Touch of the Wild. So it's 1 command point. So command point's relatively low in cost. Use this stratagem in the fight phase. Select 1 Space Wolves character model in your army until the end of that phase. When resolving an attack made by that model, an unmodified hit roll of 4 plus scores 1 additional hit. So that's huge too. So essentially you could get even more hits from that. Okay. Litanies of Battle, which that's pretty funny because Ulfric is featured there. So I'd assume that he's definitely meant to have it, but he doesn't have the keyword word right now. So yeah, but look, I'm sure they're going to update it, guys. So it's fine. So here's one of their litanies. And it's really, really powerful. So it's Tales of the Wolf King and Lord of the Deeps. If this litany is inspiring, select 1 friendly Space Wolf within 6 of this model. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in this unit against a monster or vehicle, add 1 to the damage. So that's basically that 1 damage. So, you know, if you have 5 guys, Terminators deep striking in with Thunder Hammers, you're doing D3 damage plus 1. You're re-rolling the 1s because he's going to be near a character of some kind. And then you know, because of the chapter trait, if you're running it, you're then standard infantry, Terminator elites are hitting on 2s. Re-rolling 1s, wounding on 2s, most things. So very, very, very crazy. A lot of damage, very scary as well. So there are a few relics and things like that. So we have the Williams Splitter, which is it's a melee, strength 1, minus AP 2 to damage. Abilities when resolving an attack made from this weapon against monster. This weapon has a damage pricing 4, which is pretty brutal. Okay, now it's important to note, Ragnar cannot take these relics or war gears, so he's locked off to them. Talisman of the Storm, so this is for any Ruin Priest. I believe Ulfric may be able to take this as well once they update the keywords. After resolving the first psychic power for the bearer in your psychic phase, roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 12 of the bearer. On a 4+, an enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, which is nothing to be sneezed at. Okay, so there is a fair bit more there. There are a few relics and things like that, but I just think that, you know, what I'll do is like I'll wait for the book and we'll go through the book. But it'd be really interesting to sort of hear from you guys, especially the Space Wolf players, how these rules would be affecting you, and are you going to run different lists? Are you going to be including bikers and things like that into your lineups now, into your lists? You know, would you consider you know, making Space Wolves allies in allies detachments now, or would you just keep running them vanilla? Okay, so it's kind of stuff I want to be looking at. And any other tactics, you know, or thoughts that you had or that you want to share on on the new rules. Look, personally, everybody, I think this is freaking awesome. And I think I'm definitely going to get some of these guys up on the table. I don't think I'm going to get the time to do like a whole army, but I think as a Terminator detachment to mix in with other stuff, I think it will work. Personally, I kind of think that, you know, intercessors, Primaris intercessors as space wolves is a bit of a waste. That's just me. You know, I think Reavers, I think, you know, maybe the Vanguard Marines, you know, for the deep strike ability or setup ability, stuff like that. Yes, maybe. Maybe Scouts, maybe, you know, as a cheap troop choice, just with chain swords and things like that, just as chaff. Like, they're going to die. They're going to get roasted. But I'm thinking just to fill up that troop choice to keep them vanilla, so that you benefit of, you know, all the other strategies that, you know, that come in. I'm thinking that might be something to do. And there are also the little wolves themselves, which I believe, you know, are troops choices, and I you know, they would really make a really good troop as well. So yeah, cool. Anyway, everybody, okay, that's me for today. Let me know in the comments down below what you think Space Wolves. I think they're awesome. Let's see how we go. All right.